Venice did not win the sea with romance. It won with a factory, a real one, with shifts, lists, and foremen who could hear a crooked nail from 3 sheds away. The place was called the Arsenal, and if you came looking for poetry, you left with splinters. The lagoon outside was blue. Inside these walls, it was disciplined, loud, and deadly efficient. Before sunrise, the bell rang. Doors opened. Men in coarse shirts and scarred hands walked in without speeches. Rope makers, sawyers, mast fitters, caulkers, block cutters, sail stitchers, powder keepers, biscuit bakers, barrel hoopers, and the unlucky crew on pitch pots that smoked like small volcanoes. They did not need a pep talk. They needed bench height, correct to the thumb, plank seams that would not sneer at the first wave, and a lunch that arrived when it said it would. The Arsenal was the most dangerous building in Europe for one reason. It turned time into ships. Not hope, not glory, not slogans. Time. Galleys slid through it like loaves in an oven line. Keel laid, ribs raised, planks fastened, seams paid with oakum and pitch, benches fitted, oars stacked, mast stepped, rigging hung, stores loaded, hull launched. It looked like pride. It was actually procedure. Venice standardized everything before standardization was a word. Masts came in lengths the quartermaster could recite backwards. Nails were counted by size and bundled like coins. Oars were matched by weight and grain, so 50 men could pull as one animal. Blocks for rigging were bored to tolerances a modern supervisor would approve. The city did not worship creativity here. It worshipped repeatability, because chaos is slow, and slow gets you conquered. Plenty of states had forests. Plenty had shipwrights. What they did not have was the nerve to tell important people no when they wanted art where a rule should be. The Arsenal said no a lot. No, my lord, this plank does not fit because angles obey geometry, not your cousin's opinion. No, captain, you do not get a special mast size. You get the mast that matches every spare we have. No, you cannot pay later. The wood will not wait. This is how a city lives longer than its enemies' attention spans. There was nothing mystical about the speed. It came from the boring things nobody likes to film. Deliveries that arrived on the right pier at the right hour. Tool sheds where every blade was in the same place yesterday, today, and next week. Inspection marks that actually meant something, because if you stamped junk in the Arsenal, you stamped a man's coffin. And above all, a layout that moved the work forward, even when you were not thinking about it. You could blindfold a worker, and he would still find the next station by smell and sound. People loved the legend that the Arsenal could launch a galley every day during crisis. Let us be rude and believe it. The only way that is even close to true is if each step had already been chewed into bite sizes. Keels in stacks, ribs shaped and seasoning, planks milled and waiting, benches cut to a pattern that did not need a philosopher to understand, ropes spun in long lanes, tar cooked down the morning before, sails cut and numbered, bolts sorted into casks, the way a miser sorts silver. If one bench was off by a finger's width, the oarsmen's backs paid the price, and the inspector's look could bend iron. Venice did something clever that never gets applause. It kept the machine warm in peacetime. Other states tried to sprint from a cold start every war. Venice jogged daily. Less output, same method. When the bell called for speed, they did not scale. They simply took the brakes off. If you have ever tried to wake up a silent workshop with a deadline on its back, you know why this mattered. Systems remember what people forget. The Republic trusted professionals to run the Arsenal. Not poets, not dukes, not men who confused dignity with competence. You could wear silk in the Great Council and still be told to stand aside when a foreman with ink on his fingers and pitch on his boots came down the aisle. The foreman knew where the delays hid. He also knew every cheat and shortcut, and which ones would make a hull cry after a week at sea. Those were the ones you did not do. Not because a rule said so, because the Adriatic would laugh and then drown you. Let us talk about food. Ships do not sail on courage. They sail on calories, and clean water. The Arsenal baked hard biscuit in ovens built for anger, flour, water, salt, baked dry enough to survive months of damp. Barrels were soaked and swelled, so they did not leak their contents and your future into the bilge. Water casks were rotated and cleaned because a sick crew is slower than a dead one and twice the hassle. Powder stores had their own rules because sparks travel faster than apologies. Work looked simple. Work was actually layered superstition beaten into ritual by reason. Men checked edges with the same thumb their father used. They tapped pegs and listened for a note that meant home. They burned the pitch until it went the right kind of black. Not because it was pretty, but because the wrong black cracks under the first hard sun. That is not art. That is memory wearing overalls. Venice's jokes were mean and accurate. Other courts compared genealogies. Venetians compared lead times. Somewhere a prince was arguing about brocade. In the Arsenal, a clerk was arguing about the right seasoned larch for frames, because spruce lied about strength and oak lied about weight and larch. When you asked nicely, told you the truth. That clerk with a ledger did more for survival than a poet in a hat ever did. The city treated secrets the way a banker treats keys. The Arsenal had walls, rules, guards, and a culture that did not forgive loose tongues. If you were a foreigner asking too many questions, the best outcome was a polite escort to a boat. The worst outcome was a folk tale told about you later by men sharpening chisels. Venice did not kid itself that rivals were stupid. It just bet that discipline would outrun espionage. There is a temptation to pretend the Arsenal was perfect. It was not. Wood moves, weather lies, humans get sleepy, but systems forgive. 1,000 small rights cover a few small wrongs. An inspector with a sharp eye saves as many lives as a captain with a loud voice. A well-placed drain keeps rot out of a rib the way a well-placed word keeps panic out of a crew. Boats age. Good rules do not. The schedule was not just a list, it was a heartbeat. When the Republic needed to punch hard, a Turkish fleet on the horizon, a pirate season too bold by half, a rival city-state getting ideas, the heartbeat quickened. More hands, earlier bells, later candles. You measure a city not by its speeches, but by how fast it can bring order to wood. Venice was fast. What about pay? This is where a lot of empires fail on cue. Venice paid its workers, not riches, reliability. The coin in your palm on Thursday keeps your hand honest on Friday. Late pay buys late work. Silly rulers learned this in ruin. The Republic learned it in the ledger and never forgot. If a man can feed his children with his wage, he will hit his nails straight. And straight nails are policy you can taste. You can tell a lot about a state from its allowances for error. In the Arsenal, ladders had rails. Not because men are fragile, but because broken legs delay deliveries. Sheds had water buckets and sand near the pitch pots, because flame is a dog that loves to run. Storerooms had lists nailed up where an illiterate could follow them, because systems that only geniuses can use are already dead. Venice was not sentimental about competence. It designed for normal people on tired days. That is why it beat cities that designed for heroes and got funerals. Even the satire has splinters under its nails. The Republic treated the Arsenal like a church that swore. Men cursed, sang, spat, and told the truth with wood. If you wanted romance, go read a poem. If you wanted to live in a city that still owned its trade routes next year, put on an apron and check the pitch. An enemy once said, with a sneer, that Venice was rich and soft. He met the Arsenal and decided to be poor and careful instead. Ships that arrived when they were promised have a way of educating the ambitious. Let us follow one galley from nothing to sea. Timber slides off a barge, each log chalked with its fate. Keel, rib, plank. A team sets the keel on blocks, levels it with a mason's fussiness, and fixes it like a line of law. Ribs rise in a forest of curves, each numbered, each made in a different shed, by men who never met, but kept the same manual in their heads. Planks meet ribs with a kiss that holds. Nails ring. Wedges answer. The hull becomes a room, then a corridor, then a beast. Caulkers kneel and stuff the seams with fibre like thread into a wound, then smear pitch that steams like angry tea. Benches slide in at the right height for lungs and backs, because the wrong centimetre steals a mile of speed by dusk. Oars wait in bundles. their blades shaped to a curve that bites water instead of caressing it uselessly. Riggers arrive with blocks and lines. They do not philosophize about wind. They bully it. Mast goes up, stays go tight, halyards run, sheets coil where hands expect them. Sails come from the yards stitched to patterns that did not change because some poet got bored. Powder kegs are loaded far from kitchen fires because the city liked its ships in one piece. Barrels grown into place and are wedged so waves cannot throw them around like drunks. Biscuit sacks stack in ranks. Spears and bows wait. Later, cannon come, and the Arsenal learns the new weights and new balances without writing a tragedy about change. When the galley slides down the greased ways, the crowd cheers at the sight. The foreman smiles for a different reason. The benchmarks were hit, the sheds kept pace, and nobody lied about a cracked plank. This is a form of love too, though it sounds like a ledger. The men who built the ship will hear stories about her later in dockside wine. Fast, steady, did not roll in a chop, did not leak when hungry crews leaned to look at a strange coastline. Those stories matter more than verses. They last longer. What about innovation? Venice did it, but slowly, with receipts. A new block design that shaved weight without shattering in a gale. A better pattern for benches that saved a breath per stroke. A pitch recipe that stayed flexible longer under Mediterranean sun. The Arsenal tested these in small runs, counted the breakages, and kept what worked. Disruption is for fools who do not own the repair bills. The Republic liked improvement you could measure by afternoon and trust by autumn. Enemies change. So did the machine. Heavy round shot turned to long guns with reach. Wide, deep hulls began to bully long, thin galleys. The Atlantic started whispering money that did not pass through the lagoon. Venice adjusted, diversified, trimmed sails in more senses than one. History punishes even the best factories eventually, but it punishes the worst immediately. The Arsenal bought centuries. That is a high score in a game this cruel. It is hard to explain to people who do not work with their hands why this is heroic. There is no single genius to worship, no quote to embroider, no martyr to cry over. There are only habits. Good ones. Habits are not dramatic until the day they keep you from drowning. Then they are the only drama that counts. The Arsenal's miracle was that it made good habits normal. Here is the line most rulers never learn. If you want glory, memorize poetry. If you want survival, memorize procedures. Venice wanted survival. It got rich by accident along the way. People confuse cause and effect. Wealth was not the fuel. Discipline was. Wealth just made it shine. Picture the night shift during a scare. Lanterns bob. The smell of pitch thickens. Hammers sound like rain on a roof that refuses to leak. A boy carries wedges in a basket and holds his breath when the foreman checks his work. An old man with shoulders like a doorframe taps a rib and nods. Somewhere outside, a bell on the Doge's palace chimes the hour. Inside, nobody looks up. The hour is in their hands already. The Arsenal was a lesson disguised as a building. It says, if a task matters, make it simple, repeatable, and immune to vanity. Protect the boring parts of your civilization. Feed the crews that maintain them. Inspect the work, not the speeches. And when the sea changes, change your rig before the storm, not after. The city that takes this sermon seriously gets to stay a city. One more small truth. Every worker here could feel the sea judging him, quietly, without malice. The sea is the best inspector. It has no party, no prejudice, no friends. It takes a bad seam personally and a good seam impersonally. It returns verdicts fast. The Arsenal built ships that could face that judge and return to tell about it. That is all a shipyard is for, under the pretty flags. Other cities prayed. Venice prayed too, then checked the lashings again. The difference between superstition and discipline is not faith, it is focus. Faith without focus is a wish. Focus without faith is a schedule. Together they are a navy. You can walk the lagoon shore today and see tourist boats throw pretty wakes. Close your eyes and you can still hear the older rhythm. Hammer, wedge, tap, scrape, hiss, ring, shout, laugh, curse, bell. It is not nostalgia. It is a memory of competence. We live or die by how much of that we can hoard and pass on, like dry biscuit in a damp season. The Arsenal's end was not failure. It was time. New oceans, new hulls, new trade winds, new guns. and a long, slow unthreading of the grip Venice had on roots it once owned by law, money, and menace. But while it held because this building treated procedure like poetry. Every rib, every plank, every seam rhymed with the next one. No verse, all rhythm. So here is your takeaway, and keep it taped to your own shop wall, whether your shop is oak and tar or just a kitchen table with a stubborn idea on it. Speed without slop, standards without boredom, pride without excuses. If you can manage those three, you can launch anything worth launching. The last picture, a galley noses out into the Adriatic. Oars lift together like a flock of quiet birds. The sail bellies. The hull answers the water with that deep wooden hum a good ship makes when it is happy. On the dock, the men who built her lean on posts and let their bones cool. No speeches, no fireworks, just work that keeps a city breathing, and a wall behind them that still smells like pitch on hot brick. Venice did not win because it was blessed. It won because it was organized. The Arsenal was a sermon built of sheds. People knelt before it every morning with their tools and came away forgiven at sunset by the one God that always answers honestly, the sea. Here is the joke nobody laughs at in time. The boring checklist is the sharpest sword. The Arsenal sharpened it daily. Measure the plank, seal the seam. Count the oars, label the cask, test the block, tighten the stay, scrape the hull, grease the ways, pay the crew, stamp the mark. These are small lines, and small lines decide big maps. Cities fall because they hire bards before they hire inspectors. Ask the men who rowed, what do you remember of the Arsenal? Not the smell alone, not the shouting, not the bell. They remember that the bench did not bite their backs. They remember the oar did not warp at noon. They remember the line did not part when a squall tried to teach fear. They remember that when they leaned together, the ship leaned with them, not against them. That is love in timber. It is not soft. It is mercy made out of rules. If you want a parable, take this one. A captain once demanded a clever flourish on his new ship, a flourish that would have made the rig faster in calm air and suicidal in a sudden gust. The foreman listened, nodded politely, and then built the rig the right way. The captain raged. The wind arrived on schedule and made its argument for the foreman. No apologies were exchanged. Venice did not do apologies when the sea had already ruled. The Arsenal did not exist to flatter captains or to indulge carpenters. It existed to survive. Survival is not romantic until the day after the battle, when survivors suddenly become poets. All the poetry in Venice is a footnote to this building. Without it, the city is a drawing. With it, the city is a fact. Walk the sheds in your mind one last time. Timber stacked, each piece with a fate. Tools hung, each with a name. Men working, each with a habit that keeps the next man safe. Lines coiled, casks chalked, blocks greased, wedges counted, ladders sound, fires watched, drains clear. Find the beauty there, or you will not find it anywhere that lasts longer than a song. If this sounds like a lecture, forgive the tone. The sea gave it to me. The sea is the oldest teacher and the strictest. It is not cruel. It is honest. Venice learned to be honest in return. The Arsenal was the classroom. The exam was every day. Remember the rule. Finish the boring part now, or the dramatic part later will be a funeral. The Arsenal chose boring now every time, and that is why its ships came home enough to matter. If you build for vanity, the sea will peel the paint and keep the hull. If you build for weather, the paint can be ugly and the hull will sing. Venice built for weather. Stand by a slipway and put your hand on the greased timber. Feel how it wants to move. That is gravity helping craft. The Arsenal aligned itself with every helper it could find. Gravity, wind, routine, pride. When you align with helpers, you do not need miracles. Remember the rule. Finish the boring part now, or the dramatic part later will be a funeral. The Arsenal chose boring now every time, and that is why its ships came home enough to matter. If you build for vanity, the sea will peel the paint and keep the hull. If you build for weather, the paint can be ugly and the hull will sing. Venice built for weather. Stand by a slipway and put your hand on the greased timber. Feel how it wants to move. That is gravity helping craft. The Arsenal aligned itself with every helper it could find. Gravity, wind, routine, pride. When you align with helpers, you do not need miracles.